a play, but it's more specifically a story. Femina is woman, and just because we're looking at this word, we can also say wir, W-R-V-I-R is man. So femina, woman. Hodie is the word for today. Euenis is a young man. And the word that we get from this in modern English is juvenile. So when we're talking, it's usually in legal language. Somebody who is under the age of 18 is a juvenile in terms of the law. And that's where that word is coming from. Juvenile is coming from iuvenes, which is a young man specifically in Latin, is usually who this is referring to. Meos is my or mine, depending on how it's used in the sentence. Multus is much. I want to talk a little bit about these words, multus and multi. So, this is an adjective. We've seen them. They're words that describe nouns, but we will see adjectives that change a lot more in Latin. The endings will change a lot depending on what the noun is. So that's just a reminder that it's not just like English where we can just put a adjective beside the noun and it's all done. We have to change endings in Latin to make them match up with the actual noun that that adjective is modifying. Optimus is very good, and it's more specifically best. It's like the best, Optimus. Petite heads for attacks. Plaudit is applauds or claps. Puella is a girl, and puer is a boy, just as a reminder. Senex is an old man. And an old woman, actually, we don't have the word here, but is an annos. Annos is the word for old woman. Spectat is the verb for watches. Stat, stand. Turba is a crowd of people. Ubi, where. Urbs is city, and venit is comes. And I like to always remind people of that verb. It looks different from our English one, but it is a very commonly used Latin verb, venit, or veni. Veni, vidi, vici, we think of I came, I saw, I conquered. This is Julius Caesar who says this. And I think that we can look at this and then we'll get back to our actual book. So this is chapter 6, sorry. So this is our current chapter that we're working on, the vocabulary. So this will remind us of some things before we get into the actual little stories. Ab est is out, is absent, and ab erat, so this means was out and was absent. So the big thing that we have to pay attention for these sentences we're going to be hearing today is a lot of the change in tense. So as a reminder, the word tempus in Latin means time. So the tense of a verb, it just is saying what time does the verb tell us? Is it in the past? Is it in the future? Is it right now? This is tense. So we're starting to see some different tenses in Latin, as we know. And we're going to see a lot of examples of past tense being used today. And Latin has just also, I should say too, a couple of different ways that we can say the past tense. It's actually more specific than most often English is today. So ab est is out, is absent, and ab erat was out and was absent. We can see that the word ab is there. Ab, as a reminder, is a preposition in Latin. And just like we had ad in last chapter's vocabulary, ad est and ad sunt, this chapter we're making a new verb to say, so this one is saying is here, we are saying is out in this chapter. So ab est and ab erat. Cubiculum is a bed. The standard room in a Roman house. And it is typically seen as somebody's bedroom. This is where they would have spent their own personal time. Emit means, as is the verb for buying something. Ferociter, fiercely. Festinat, hurries. Fortis is brave. It also means strong as well. Fur is a thief. Intente means intensely or carefully. Libertus and a liberta. This is either freedman or freedwoman. Libertus and liberta. Olim, once or some time ago. This is sort of like the expression once upon a time. I don't want to say that expression for this, but it's a little bit like that expression in that a lot of the times a story that somebody is going to say about something that happened in the past begins with the word olim. Parvus means small. Per means through. Postquam means after. Pulsat is hits or punches. Quod means because. Res means thing. This word res, it may look very small and it may look very insignificant, but it is a very commonly used Latin noun, res. Easy example to think of to make you remember the word res is the word for republic in Latin. And the word for republic is res publica. Res means thing. Publica means the people or the population, but we'll just say the people. So res publica quite literally means the people's thing. But as we know, it means a little bit more than just the people's thing. What is that exactly? As we know, a republic is a little bit of a political system. But res is a word that you will see come up in Latin very, 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 very often. Scribit, writes. Subito, suddenly. Super, overcomes and overpowers. One easy thing to remember with this word, it can be a little confusing sometimes, but if we see super means to be above things. If we think of, if you're going to win in a fight, you're going to be above that person. You're going to beat them. You're going to be above them. So when you're beating somebody, you are overcoming them. Quite literally, you're over them. So that is one way to not get confused by this word, supererat. Tum, then. Tuus is the word for your or yours. This will come up quite a lot too. Vendit for sells, and vituperat is the word for curses or blames. But I think in terms of the ancient Roman world, it's probably important to remember this as a kind of the curses sort of way of thinking it. Oh, right. So I think that we will pick up now where we left off with our chapter. So let me get it back to the beginning. So, just to begin, I do believe we did this, but I'm going to go through this very quickly. The sections about the introductions to our concepts that we're doing. So these pictures, as we know, they're very, very helpful in giving our minds the picture of what is going on with the different verbs. So, servi perviam ambulabant. Servi perviam ambulabant. So this is important to remember that we are now looking at different tenses in our verbs. Let's zoom in a little bit, actually. So this looks a little bit more complicated than it is. It's ambulat. Ambulat means walking, as we know, but we have bant on the end here. Well, the nt, that's plural. So we know that there's multiple slaves. For instance, in this, there's multiple slaves walking. Perviam, through the road. But more specifically, when was that happening? They were walking through the roads. They were doing it. It happened in the past. So servi perviam ambulabant. This is our first way of saying the past tense in Latin. So this is the imperfect tense, and we'll talk about what that means later, but for now, just think of it as one of the ways to say the past tense. So, canis subitio latravit. So, the dog, right, was barking, right? Subitio. Latravit was barking. The dog was barking. So, grumio canem timebat. Grumio canem timebat. Hear that ba